Welcome back to the Pirate Republic. This is an audiobook presentation of Pirates of the Wild West, the first novel in the Storm of Time series, released one chapter at a time. In the last chapter, we found out that Woodes Rogers is also in the Wild West era. He is the pirate hunter, and he's chasing down our intrepid pirates. Blackbeard had narrowly escaped by diving out a second-story window of the saloon and brothel, the Paris. And now we move on to Chapter 7, Burial at Sea. Chapter 7, Burial at Sea. The pirates sat in silence as Black Caesar rowed their skiff over the calm waters of San Francisco Bay. They had decided that they would bury Jack at sea nearest to the site where the Queen Anne's Revenge had gone down. They were all tired, and their nerves were raw, but it was only fitting that they make the best effort under the circumstances to send their fellow marauder into the afterlife with a traditional sailor's funeral. Black Caesar had spotted some flotsam from their ship and estimated where it must be lying at the bottom of the bay. He let the small craft drift as he stowed the oars, then nodded to Anne that this was the spot. Mary held Anne's hand as the others prepared Jack Rackham's body to be lowered overboard from their skiff. They filled Jack's pockets with rocks and wrapped a heavy anchor chain that had been stored on the skiff around his waist so that he would not float or drift. Black Caesar had begun to remove Jack's weapons when Anne shouted, "No! He won't be needing these, but we will," Black Caesar said. "He's right. Better we be well armed for this new world rather than for the one beyond," Charlotte said, while putting a comforting hand on Anne's shoulder. Anne wiped tears from her eyes and moved over to kneel beside Jack. She put her hand on his soft cheek, then kissed his lips for the last time. She pulled 2 pistols and his dirk from his waistband and set them aside on the wooden floor of the small boat. Anne gave a loving smile to her Jack and guided his hands to the hilt of his polished cutlass and wrapped her scarf around them to hold them in place. "He keeps his sword. He's a pirate captain, and a pirate captain always has his sword," she said as she stood back, taking Mary's hand again. Hornigold stood and turned toward the small group. "We don't have the prayer book, but I'll say the words best as I remember them, if you'd like." Mary nodded her head. Hornigold and the others all bowed their heads. He cleared his throat and began the pirate prayer for the dead. "We offer our brother Calico Jack Rackham, captain of the swift sloop William, to the Lord and to the sea. His rich life was cut short this day, and we therefore commit his body to the deep to be turned into corruption, looking for the resurrection of the body, when the sea shall give up her dead, and the life of the world to come through our Lord Jesus Christ, who at his coming shall change our vile body, that it may be like his glorious body, according to the mighty working, whereby he is able to subdue all things to himself." Hornigold nodded to Black Caesar, and they both lifted the body of Jack and gently lowered him into the icy waters of the awaiting bay. The pirates watched as Jack's body sank, becoming only a fading shadow as it disappeared below the dark, glassy surface. Black Caesar gently rowed the skiff back to shore as the other pirates huddled together, while the drizzle soaked through their coats and into the garments underneath. None had said a word since they had laid Jack to rest below the icy waters. Anne Bonny was done crying for Jack, as it would now do no good. Her grief was quickly turning to anger. When she found out her husband James didn't make it through the storm, and they rescued Jack from the sea, she expected that they would wed at the soonest opportunity. Now another James has taken Jack away from her, but this time it was forever. The others were adrift in their thoughts of everything they had lost and the seemingly hopeless situation they were in. Hornigold began to hum a familiar tune in hopes of turning the despair that was slowly overtaking the remnants of his pirate republic. At first no one paid him any mind, but then Anne turned her face to him and picked up the song with the rest of the small crew joining in. "Hang sorrow, let's cast away care. The world is bound to find us. Thou and I and all must die, and leave this world behind us. The bell shall ring, the clerk shall sing, the good old wife shall wind us. The sexton shall lay our bodies in clay, where the devil in hell shall find us." Anne smiled at Hornigold, and Mary patted her knee affectionately. "Thank you all for helping me bury my Jack." "What do we do now?" Mary asked. "We find the others, and we steal ourselves a new ship," said Hornigold, as they once again floated past the amazing array of ocean vessels. "Something with sails, mind you," quipped Charlotte. "Not me," said Anne. They all turned to look at her. Anne pulled her damp hair back and tied it into a ponytail away from her face. "I'll be seeking my vengeance on this Jesse James. I will not rest or sail from these shores until my dear Jack has been avenged." They pulled the skiff up along the shore, stowing it above the tide line, and began their walk back to the saloon where they had left the others. The streets were near empty, but for a few drunks and vagrants wandering the alleyways or sleeping under the shelter of the building's awnings and overhangs. The only sound was a sucking noise as their boots sank into and dislodged from the muddy ground as they walked. None could guess the time of morning, since the dark, overcast skies blocked the moon and stars from view. They were all dragging their feet, mind and bodies depleted of energy, save for Anne, who walked with purpose toward her newly minted mission. Rounding a corner first, Hornigold held his arm out for the rest to stop. He stepped back into the cover of a building and turned, holding a silencing finger to the others. He carefully looked around the corner, seeing 4 men outside the Paris conversing. One of the men was Jennings, and the 3 others were wearing the blue coats of the British Navy. Hornigold let out an inaudible sigh as he recognized the tallest of the 3 Navy men. He turned back to the impatiently waiting group behind him. "What?" Charlotte inquired in a hushed voice. "This night has become darker. Around that corner is the pirate hunter, Woodes Rogers." They stared at him for a moment, then Mary moved Hornigold out of the way to have a quick look. She grimaced on seeing the men standing outside the saloon. She then turned back and ushered the group away. "It's him all right, and he's with Jennings, that damn turncoat. How did Woodes Rogers follow us to this place?" "If he followed us here, then maybe there's a way back," Charlotte said. Hornigold was silent and looked away from them for a moment. He took a few steps away from the street that led to the men and the Paris. He turned back to the group. "We need to find another place to hole up. We all need sleep and to put some distance between us and them. Come on." He hastily set off back toward the docks, and the others looked at one another questioningly, but then followed him back the way they had come. They followed the road back to the docks and began searching for an open door to a warehouse. All were locked up tight, but Charlotte spotted one with a window high above the ground. "You 2 boys give a girl a boost?" she asked of Black Caesar and Hornigold. The 2 men held their hands clasped together and bent their knees for Charlotte to climb up with both feet in their palms. They counted 3 and boosted her up in the air toward the window. Charlotte's hands clasped the window ledge, and sure-handedly she was able to open the window and pull herself inside. A few moments later, she unlatched the door and ushered the rest of them inside. Through the dim light of the windows, they were able to see the contents of the warehouse. Lining the shelves were boxes of clothing, some open, most closed. The crew strode around, opening the cases and pulling out the articles to get a better look. Mary rubbed the unfamiliar denim material between her fingers. "Such bland colors, but the quality is high," Charlotte mused. "Colors be damned, they are dry," Hornigold said, and began pulling off his wet clothes. He held up buttoned shirts and dungarees, finding ones that would fit his frame. The rest went through the same process and quickly changed into the new clothing. Anne stopped and looked at Hornigold in his blue denim pants and cream-colored shirt that had no embellishments or frills. "Look at you, future man," Anne said. "I look ridiculous, but at least I'm dry. You look like a common scallywag in that," he replied, looking over Anne's choice of men's pants and shirt. Mary dumped a box of shirts on the floor, then laid them out as a bed. The rest followed suit, and before long, they all settled in for a few hours of sleep. "Do you think we'll find our way home?" Mary asked no one in particular. After a moment, Mary sighed, as there was no answer. "In the morn we will regroup and find a way," Hornigold finally said without conviction. "Where do you think Bellamy and Roberts got off to?" Mary asked. "Drinking, whoring, my guess," Hornigold said, again without conviction. He didn't believe that was the case, but it came out of his mouth, as his mood was foul. Bellamy was too in love with the lass from his home for whoring. Where they were at the moment wasn't a concern of his, but he was having doubts that it would be easy to reunite with his pirate gang. The only point of reference they all had in common was that saloon. Now that the pirate hunter had found Jennings at the Paris, it was probably best to avoid the location. He hadn't seen Vane or Thatch in that group, and he could guess why. Woods Rogers would have killed them both on the spot, so either they were dead or had escaped somehow. He needed a strategy going forward, but his head was clouding with fatigue. He had closed his eyes moments ago, and now he felt himself drifting into sleep. This all must be a dream. In his slumber, he saw himself commanding a nimble sloop of war, 8 cannons and a crew of 50. A hot wind blew through his hair, and the warm Caribbean sea sprayed against his sun-tanned face. A Spanish treasure galleon was on the horizon, and he called to his mates to give chase. He smiled as around him, buccaneers manned the rigging and set the sails. Hornigold turned the polished wooden wheel with a flourish toward the galleon. All was right in the world again as he lay on his bed of soft clothes dumped on the floor from a warehouse box. I hope you're enjoying this historical fiction book with pirates and time travel all wound together in it. You can find the ebook and physical books at my website, briancantrell.com. You can also find the second book in this series, Pirates of World War II. And if you're a fan of pirates, you can check out thepiraterepublic.com. It's a weekly newsletter that I put out every Friday. All sorts of great pirate history, events, news, and happenings. You can also toss a few doubloons our way by joining our Patreon at Patreon, The Pirate Republic. We'll see you next week. Till then, fair winds and keep a weathered eye.